Hi everyone. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Tech Interview Secrets. Uh, we will be joined by our guest very soon, and there she is. This is the Tech Interview Secrets. Hi Ritika, and this is one show where we bring some of the brightest minds, one of the best minds in programming, and who are currently working with some of the best tech companies in the world. And we ask them how they did it, when they did it, and we hear straight from the horse's mouth how the cookie crumbles. Uh, be prepared with your questions. We already have taken your questions. Let's welcome Ritika Nevatia, who is currently working as a software engineer in Apple. But before that, she also has had a very illustrious career that we can boast of. She has also been an entrepreneur. We're going to learn all about Ritika. Thank you so much for coming here today. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm doing good, thanks.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Ritika, we are definitely going to learn about your career, your professional journey, and how you prepared for everything. But before that, we want to know a little more about you, about your school, your college, your hometown. How was growing up?
Hi, okay. So I was born and raised in Mumbai. So pretty much went to school in Mumbai, went to college in Mumbai, and like most people, I studied for ITJ. I got a decent rank, but it didn't get me into a computer science college. So I didn't go for an IIT, but I instead went to a university at Sardar Patel Institute of Technology, which is uh, uh, Mumbai University and we had um, we had 4 years of college. I was in computer science branch from the beginning, and after that, during my college, I should mention, I did two internships. The third year, I was at this company called Barclays, which is in Pune, and uh, that was two months in summer of 2014
Right.
and summer of 2015, which was almost at the end of my fourth year after giving my exams. I did a brief internship at CERN, which is in Geneva, and um, after that, I came home. Uh, I was at home for about a month, and then I started my full time job at Rakuten as a software engineer in this city called Fukuoka, which is in the west coast of Japan.
Mhm.
And I was there for about, I think, 3 years. And then I did my master's at Stony Brook University, which is in Long Island, New York.
Right.
And I was there for a year and a half, during which I did an internship at Uber ATG. ATG is the self-driving car division, or used to be. Now they've sold it to another company called
Right.
Aurora.
Right.
And I used to be a software engineering intern there. And after my master's ended, I started with a full-time position at Apple as a software engineer in January of 2020, just before
Right.
the pandemic started.
That's an amazing graph. That's an amazing career graph that you just summed up in the very few words. But it's a dream for a lot of people. Uh, let's go back to your college life a bit. Did you
Okay.
did you partake in competitive programming when you were in college, or was there a culture as such?
There was definitely a culture, and most of the time, the culture was, for me personally, it was the fear of missing out culture because,
Right. Okay.
like, the smart kids in my class did do a lot of CodeChef, and
Mhm.
it was crazy popular, and people would like get into the class, and nobody was listening to what the professor was saying, but everybody was just discussing about this problem they all
Right.
did
Right.
last night. And I did try, I'll be honest. So I still have an account, and I tried, but I was really bad at it, so I think I gave up pretty soon.
Right.
Yes.
That's fine because it worked out pretty fine for you. Uh, you've well traveled and well read professional you have become. Let's talk about your current role. Did you want to work with Apple, or did Apple happen to you?
I just wanted to get a job. Basically, I think mentality after getting a master's degree is get a
Right.
job first and not like just make sure that you're on a visa here. So you want to
Right.
be employed, and uh, so it wasn't really as much as I just want to work at Apple as much as it was I need a job right
Right.
now.
Right. Right.
So uh, and of course Apple was on my list. I tried with different teams, and I can talk about it later if you want. But Apple was on my list, yes. So it just did not happen. I also tried for it, is what I'm trying to say.
So, okay, let's talk about your Apple. We already have a question from one of our community members. This is a question sent by Manoj Maddi Neni. Uh, he is curious to know that how did you crack Apple as a fresher?
I wasn't a fresher when I started at Apple, so I already had 3 years of work experience when I came here. But I do know a lot of other kids in my team or people who have
Right.
joined with me who joined Apple as a fresher.
Right.
And I think the interview process is very slightly different, but not so different. Like, for
Mhm.
example, uh, one major difference between really senior candidates, not me, but like someone who's really senior, is that they have, I'm sorry. One difference is that they have a lot more system design interviews. So, for example, instead of having just a lot of competitive programming based questions, they will have a a couple of extra system design interview questions instead. And so my interview had a balance of both. But usually, I think freshers is very focused on competitive programming because they do not
Mhm.
expect uh,
Right.
uh, just freshers out of college to know a lot about system designs, or
Right.
they have not seen a lot of system designs in the past.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
that's a basic expectations. That's a basic expectation of senior
Right.
candidates, right?
Right. Okay, so we already have received some pearls of wisdom from Ritika. If you want to crack Apple, focus on system designs. All right. So I also wanted to know, how did you apply? How was this entire process of getting through Apple? I mean,
Uh,
and also, yeah,
okay.
this, yeah.
Uh, sure. So for me, I think Apple as a company does not work as Apple is interviewing me. It is like this team at Apple is interviewing me.
Mm,
So, for example, I had interview processes open with two different teams at Apple at the same time um, before I, accepted any offer. So. It's really about finding these teams, reaching out to the right people. For the first team I was interviewing with was completely opposite to the role I have right now. It was a file system engineer position for Mac OS. And how I got in touch with someone there was because they were an alumni of Stony Brook University. So I reached out to them on LinkedIn and I was like, hi, we worked in the same lab and I also have a very nice interest and I have worked with this professor in Stony Brook who's
mm.
popular for file systems. So do you think you might want to refer me to your team? I did not know, but this person was also the manager on that team.
Oh, nice.
So he gave me a chance. So it just happened because I reached out to them.
Yeah.
And after that, um, the process was exactly the same for me as it would have been for any other person.
Mhm.
I also tried applying online to a bunch of different teams, but I did not hear back ever.
Right.
For my current team, I met a very senior manager in my org at an event,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I just rammed into them. I was like, "This is me. This is my resume.
Mhm.
I really want to work with you." I did not even know which org he worked at, but I just went on and on about how I love my iPhone and I would not go back to an Android again.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, you're really persistent. Why don't I give you a call tomorrow? And so that's how that happened.
Very interesting. So, key thing is persistence. Everyone who is watching, persistence is very important. You can learn it from Ritika. But we also learned that Ritika did some networking through LinkedIn and some old contacts. That's one of the ways to get into the company that you want to. Obviously, you need merit. Without merit, you can't. But if you do not have that kind of network, so Ritika, what would you advise? What would you suggest? Is there any other way that you can apply to a company like Apple?
A lot of people who work in my team have not
Mm.
come through contacts or networks. They have
Right.
made it through the old-fashioned way of going to the careers page,
Right.
careers.apple.com, finding a job that interests them,
Right.
write a nice note to the hiring manager because there is usually a box in the bottom which says, "Is there anything else you'd like to add to your application?"
Right. Right.
Uh, that is something they uh, uh, immediately open and they see, and you don't want to put your life history there, but you want to just
Mm-hmm.
highlight why you would make a good fit to the team that you're specifically applying for and not make it a generic, I would like to work at your company. No, I would like to work at this specific team because of my this specific skill. And
Right.
I think I would be a great fit. And I think a lot of people have done that and it works out really fine.
Right. That explains what other ways that you can go for. If you do not have contacts, you can always go the old-fashioned conventional ways. All right, let's move to the next question that I want to know. It's again something to do with your backing the job at Apple. How many rounds were there at Apple? How many rounds of interviews and what kind?
um, there were 5 or 6 for each of the teams. Again, like I said, there were uh, the different teams have different processes, so the kinds of round really depends on the team you're interviewing with. And in my case, when I was interviewing with the file system team, for example, the I didn't make it too far. They sort of kept me on hold in the third round itself. They thought they found a better candidate, and they were really honest about it with me. They were like,
Right.
hey, we have found someone who is much better at C than you are, and
Right.
we are just gonna try them out and see if they want to accept our offer. And if that happens, then we are not gonna proceed with you. But so please go ahead and find other interviews if you can,
Right.
but know that you're on hold here. So the 3 interviews I had with that team were completely C code based. They were file systems. They were expecting me to know bitwise manipulation. They were expecting me to uh, like just mess around with pointers just like that,
Right.
and
Right.
that was not really my forte, so
Mhm.
to speak. But they were really patient with me. I want to give them credit for that. But on the other hand, my interview with my current team, which is iCloud content delivery team, I had a very mixed kind of interview type round. They asked me about databases, they asked me about networking, like computer networking. They asked me about system design. I was made to do competitive programming style code on the whiteboard, and I was asked a lot about distributed systems. So it was really a mixed bag about technologies
Right.
that I work with every day today.
Right.
So yeah, I would say it's really specific to the team. For
Right.
example, people who work in UI, people who work in app development do not have these kinds of questions. So it really comes down to, because it's such a big company, there's so many teams, there's so many engineers. What exactly, what kind of role do you want to apply for? It
Right.
really boils down to that.
Right. So as you mentioned that they had a lot of expectations from you in terms of skills. So how much of these did you actually have, and how much of these had to be bridged, the gap?
Uh, let's see. You mean as from preparation point of view, or
No, as you mentioned
like,
that there was a multiple skills that they were expecting from you. I'm sure
yes.
your experience with the companies that you've worked before helped in some way.
Right. So system design was really helpful. For example, like I aced those rounds really well, I would say,
Right.
but I sucked at networking. Computer networks was not my strongest when I was interviewing.
Okay.
And my strategy, which has worked out for me in my life so far, has been if you do not know, just say I don't know.
Right.
Usually, I feel like when I was in college in SPIT, when we had exams, or if the default way to crack it was just be faku, like
Yeah.
just make up stuff.
Right.
And I don't think you should do that in front of smart people. So and consider everybody as smart, and just never do that. So my life strategy drastically changed after college. So for example, in computer networking rounds, as soon as they started getting into specific questions, I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know this, but if you ask me about this, then I can tell you more. And so they would be like, okay, let's ask you about this more. And so instead of going into things that I didn't know about, I asked the
Right.
interviewer to ask me about things I knew about. And
Yeah.
that was sort of more fun for me, and it worked out better for me.
Yeah, the wise choice to play, with your strong points.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to know that a lot of things that come as requirements from these companies. Young freshers, they don't have that idea. Uh, Now that you mentioned that you could be asked for these skills, it gives them a clearer picture. I'll go to the next question. This has been sent in by Shivani. Shivani wants to know if you had any strategy for cracking Apple.
I would say my main strategy again that it was not lie in the interview. I I know kids who've done that, and it does
Yeah,
not work out for them
right.
in many ways, on many levels. So first and foremost strategy is be as honest as you can,
Right.
even if it means you look like stupid, even if you uh, it just means you have the capacity to accept that you do not know something as an engineer, which happens to the
Mhm.
greatest people in the world. So just be okay with it. But on a serious note, key strategies to crack tech interviews is
Right.
uh, to take your time to think before you say something. So
Mhm.
there's often times when you're asked questions that you may not know about. It's okay. Take a second, acknowledge that you've heard the question. So my response usually to something new would be, just a second, I'm thinking about it, or I literally start thinking out loud. Usually it's hard because for me, I think in Hindi most times, so I just translate sort of what I'm thinking in my head to English, and so I'd just be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and this is what I know. So are you trying to ask me about this, or are you trying to ask me about this? And then try to answer the question they are asking, and not answer what I know about it.
Right.
So clarifications.
Right.
I feel like to any question that I'm asked, I do at least two rounds of clarifications before I get to the answer, because I want to make sure that I'm answering what they're actually looking for, and not
Right.
just saying whatever the hell I want to say.
Right. But what, it sounds like you played by the ear. You winged it, and it completely worked for you. Uh, but would you have any advice for someone who is a little wants to be a little more prudent? Uh,
No, yeah, of course. It's not like I did not prepare. So if
right.
you're asking me about my cracking tech
Right.
strategy, like as my preparation would be, it involves a lot of doing a lot of competitive programming, because if you know your basics, if you know what, uh, if you hear a question and you know that the optimal way to solve this question is using a graph,
Right.
then you can acknowledge that there are brute force ways to do it,
Mhm.
and you just move on to the graph point. Like you do not, you have only 20 minutes to make a good impression.
Mhm.
And if you waste those 20 minutes talking about the brute force solution, if
Right.
you do not know the answer, it's okay. But if you know the answer, then it helps. So I feel that the main strategy to crack tech interviews would be to know your basics, which is if you hear a question, you're able to identify, okay, this is a graph type question, or I can do this using this data structure, or if it's really algorithmic specific, then this algorithm, and you say that out loud. You explore the brute force solutions. You do not go into details if you know the optimal solution already, and then you go to the optimal solution and you start talking about it, and as soon as you can, start writing
Right.
code for it, because time flies really fast. There are mistakes in the code. uh, People expect your code to work.
Right.
People, find mistakes in your code. They see your habits while coding. So if you write something like int I, they're going to be like, this person is going to write int I in production code. That's not okay.
Right.
So you have to write something like int, the description of the integer that you're making, instead of being like
Right.
I. And uh, small things like that become extremely magnified under the interview
Right.
class, so
Right.
to speak.
That was some excellent insight. Guys who are watching uh, can see there are some intricate details that you have to be very careful about. Uh, all right, moving on to the next question. This is by Hemant Ram. Hemant wants to know if there is anything apart from DSA and Algo, that any other technology that he should be preparing for.
If you're looking at specific teams, like you want to work with the Swift team, you have to know Swift. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But non non-tech specific questions would be system design. I would say there are a lot of good resources on the internet for free on GitHub or on or books which are popular. Read them. My favorite way to learn about system design is big companies have tech blogs. Just read the blogs. You will find topics of your interest, like related to the team you're interviewing with. So if I'm interviewing with iCloud's content team at Apple, then I know Netflix also does content, and Netflix has a
Right.
great engineering blog. So I did actually go to Netflix's engineering blog and read about how they work. And even if Apple's technology is sort of not like, Apple does not have an engineering blog, so to say, but the technology used would be very similar. They will also be on the same state of the art tech. So I think it's a good idea to read about what companies are currently doing and not be stuck in the theoretical
Right.
curriculum that we have, because reality is so much different than what we learn in school.
Yeah. That's a lot of R&D that you do for your self development. What are the your go to blog content blog sites, technical blog sites?
Uh, So companies like again, I'm a fan of Netflix, Twitter, Stripe. These companies have really good detailed engineering blogs. They like to write about the tech they work on. But Hacker News, if people know about it, news.y Combinator,
Right.
uh, they have this. It's a very basic website, but people submit good tech articles on it, and it refreshes almost every hour. So if I'm bored, my homepage tab opens almost always to a Hacker News site, and I'll read an interesting article, and I click and I learn about a new company, or I learn about a new tech that I did not know
Right.
about.
Okay.
And so apart from these specific companies, like even Cloudflare is a good example. They write really detailed engineering blogs. You can go to Hacker News and just uh, hang out there a little bit to get a
Right.
feel of
Right. Right.
what other people have to say about their companies and their tech.
Mhm. I hope you guys are taking notes of the references she's mentioning. It's going to work wonders for you. I'm getting a lot of questions in the comment section. I'm going to go get to them in a bit. But before that, I'm going to take another question from the list, because you mentioned that Swift is very important to crack, a company like Apple. So this brings me to the next question from Mudit Jain, who wants to know, is it is DSA and a strong hold over C++ or Java enough, or does he have to uh,
So
lo-
this was my experience in general with tech companies, and also specifically with Apple, because I did interview with a team which used exclusively C, and I was bad at it. They were still willing to give me a chance because I think everyone as a tech community understands that if you're a
right,
fresher, you still have a lot of time to pick up skills, and programming language is like the easiest skill to pick up because syntax differs, but essentially the concept is the same. You still end up writing for loops, you still end up using something like a hash map, or you still end up using some sort of an array. And so the basic concepts remain the same. It's just a different lingo or a different different syntax. So people are forgiving if you do not know about language specific stuff. And in fact, I don't think anybody asked me anything language specific in any of my interviews with most tech companies. So I would say it's not really the most focus point of an interview anyway. DSA is definitely the most important skill. I will not deny that. But if you want a Swift specific team, then you have to know Swift. But I did not. And I interviewed with a team that uses Java primarily. And it worked out fine for me because in my previous company, I was using Java. So I had sort of 3, 4 years of experience using the language. Uh, Another thing about Swift is like it is an easy language to learn. Like since I have joined, I have worked on projects which have used Swift,
Right.
and it took me time, but people are like willing to explain to you how it works, or you can go visit
Right.
some Apple has good documentation about it, so you can read up some things and do them yourself. But DSA is something that nobody can teach you. You have to sit
Right.
down with yourself and you know work on it for a long period of time. It doesn't come in one day. You
Right.
can't just Google a syntax and just get it. Like so I think like the key area to focus is definitely um, the competitive programming type of questions.
Right. All right, there. I think that answers your question, Mudit. All right, I'm getting a lot of questions in the comment section. Let's open it up for a little bit, if you don't mind, Ritika.
Sure.
Okay, all right, let's take this question from Harshit. Harshit says he's from an average college, but he seeks your advice to getting off-campus placements.
Off-campus placements. So I think I am a good example because I did not. My on-campus placement was from Barclays because I had an internship offer, return offer from them. So I did not sit for other companies in my campus placements. And I was bummed out because we had some good companies come in after Barclays came in. So I felt that the process was unfair to me, and I was really upset about it back in the day. So my default response was to just go and apply online because I read on the internet that all these other kids uh, across the world, they don't have this concept of really on campus placement. This is a very Indian thing to do, and I was like, okay, so let's see where can we get a visa. I knew
Right.
that the US would not hire me as
Right.
a as an Indian passport candidate, so I was open to uh, countries which were more accepting. So I just went to jobs in the UK, in Australia, in Japan, in in a little bit in Canada, but I didn't hear back a lot from there. But I did get responses from the UK. I had an offer from there. I interviewed with a bunch of companies in Australia. They're really willing to give you a chance on a visa. And of course, Japan. Then I ended up taking the one in Rakuten, which was in Fukuoka.
Right.
So yes, I
So
would say just go online and apply.
yeah.
I did not have contacts back then. Like I did
Right.
not understand what networking meant. My network was
Right.
extremely tiny. Everybody from my class was my network. That's it.
Right.
And
Right.
they are as inexperienced as you are. So my instinct was these other kids are doing it. I can do it. And so I just went and applied, hit
Right.
apply online everywhere I could. Yeah,
Yes, and networking today doesn't mean that you have to physically be present with, be friends with people. That things have become much simpler now with LinkedIn and all these social networking sites. Uh,
sure. Yeah.
right. All right. Let's take another question from the comment section. Okay, this is from Vansh. Vansh has a very simple question, but the answer is not going to be so simple. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of details. Ma'am, may you please
Okay.
tell us the roadmap to become a good programmer like you to crack coding rounds?
I would not say I'm a good programmer, but okay. Uh, I think cracking coding rounds and being a good employee to a company like Apple are two different things. Unfortunately,
Right.
um, uh, I don't use a lot of graph algorithms every day in my job, but I do write a lot of code every day, like a lot. So uh, they don't really go hand in hand. But I feel like the key thing is to adapt when you're in the interview zone, you just want to
Right.
focus on DSA. And
Right.
when you're already working, then you forget about those things and you move on to doing everyday code stuff.
Mhm.
And the roadmap, so to speak, was first practice these algorithmic questions. Second, um, uh, I want to say be confident in your preparation because no matter how much you do, it's never going to be enough. There's always going to be something that you missed.
Right.
So just take a deep breath and walk in, being confident that I have done everything I could at this point. So let's just give it my best shot. And I think I had a lot of unsuccessful interviews. And my response to those was come back home when you're in the zone back again, go back to the question, try to solve it. Most of the times, when you're in a more relaxed environment, when you're not intimidated by another person,
Right.
you do it yourself. And you just need to give yourself some time, a break,
Right.
like
Right.
be physically, mentally ready in that zone. And then you know that you have it in you. And if you don't, it's okay because you can go back, look at the solution, and be prepared the next time. So I feel like for me, it was a lot of iteration of doing this, like getting rejected, getting negative feedback, going back home, opening the books and being like, this is something I missed. I completely forgot, for example, that I had to study for dynamic programming until I was rejected by Airbnb because one of their interviewers asked me a very basic question about dynamic programming, but I didn't study dynamic programming before my interview. And I think it's a very specific kind of an algorithm. If you don't know, you don't know. And I came back home and I was like, oh God, this was a DP question I missed. And
Right.
so I practiced a bunch of dynamic programming interviews. And the next time I was like, okay, if it comes off, I can at least be ready with something, if not nothing. And I feel like it's a very iterative process. You have to not give up and just keep going at it.
Right. 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 Some amazing advice from Ritika here. First of all, write lots of codes, as Ritika would
Yes.
say, and practice herself. Practice a lot of algorithmic questions. Be confident, and what else? And upsolve. If you think you are not being able to solve anything, go home, upsolve, make yourself
Yes.
better. All right. That's some. This is exactly why we have come here for your, drops of wisdom from Ritika Nevatia, who has done really well for herself, and there is only so much to learn from her. Before I go to the next question, Ritika, I remember something you said about if you do not know anything, say that you do not know anything.
Yes.
In a You don't pretend otherwise. So this question comes from Soumya Pandey and Dheeraj Sharma. I think both of them have sent in the same question. They ask,
Okay.
"What if there is a question we have no idea about? How should we
hmm
tackle that situation?"
Uh, my, I would still stick to the same philosophy. And
Right,
someone may say that it's a bad idea, but
right,
it has 100% of the times worked out for me.
right,
Because if you say, I do not know the word also that you're describing, they may, define it for you. For example, if they speak about a concept which is similar to another concept that you know, and they describe it, and so you can be like, oh, so let's say, for example, I'll give you a good example. Like you have
right,
never heard about queues,
right,
you have only heard about stacks your entire life, and someone says, hey, can you solve this question using a queue? And you'll be like,
right.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking about. And you would be
Hmm.
like, a queue. And you should have the uh, courage to say, uh, can you please tell me what a queue is? And
Mhm.
they start describing what a queue is. And then you can say, oh, so you mean something like a stack, but which works in this way. And you're instantly able to relate to another concept that you know from
Right,
history. Uh, and it helps you to give some answers at least. And I feel this is impressive. Personally, if I'm an interviewer, and
right,
if I have a candidate who will say that, who is able to derive things on their own, I think
right,
it speaks very, very highly about them.
right.
So I think it's a very big sign if you
Yeah,
if you are able to say, A, you have the courage to say no, I do not know, and B, if you are able to come up with it yourself with the help of the interviewer, I think it's a big deal. Yeah, I think you've
Yeah,
You
that's a very
reinvented sort
important
of
point.
something. Yeah.
It's a very important point that you make. It not just your merit or your skill or your academic qualifications that they are judging. They are also judging certain elements of your character, uh, which shows in how you handle a situation. Because there are some comments in the who are, who want to know, okay, is it does it give a negative impression if you start thinking about a certain problem during an interview? Do you think?
No. No, I just think no. Everybody knows. Nobody is unaware, or nobody is like,
Correct.
oblivious to the fact that everyone does CodeChef like at home. Everyone knows
Right.
that, like, because everyone else is also who is interviewing is also an engineer, so they have also uh, in their day, done competitive programming. So
Right.
I think it's okay to say that, oh, this sounds like the island problem I have seen earlier on this platform, and
Right.
in that question it asked me to do this and I did it this way. So maybe this question, which is sort of similar, I can try applying the same concept in this way. And this is a skill we use every single day at my job. I often work with teams that I have never worked with before, and I see new code all the time, and I have to sort of relate it with other other teams, or like other products that my team has, and be like, oh, so this does the same thing except it
Right.
does this differently, and it
Right.
instantly helps you to be in a comfort zone and sort
Right.
of put your head into it.
Right. That's the fun of working at such a a high level organization. You're learning new things every day, so there is no problems in accepting what you do not know. Moving on to the next question. This has been sent by Amay Pate. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name right. I hope I'm not destroying your name, Amay. Amay has a very simple question for you, Ritika. Tips for obtaining an internship in Apple. Mind you, he's looking for an internship, not an FTE.
Uh, I think our internship rounds are as intensive as a full-time round.
Right.
I
Right.
don't think the preparation is any different. Honestly,
Right.
I feel the preparation is exactly the same.
Uh-huh.
Even during my master's, when I was preparing, I tried Apple. Like, I tried getting an internship at Apple, but I ended up with Uber instead. And the process was exactly the same. The uh, In fact, I think there's sort of more competition because everyone who is applying for an internship is also in the same position as you. But
Right.
when you're applying for a job, not everyone is at the same position as you. Like, some people are instantly more senior, some people are instantly less senior, or whatever. But in an internship, everybody is a college kid. Everybody else has taken more or less the same courses at university. So everybody's on the level playing field.
Mhm.
So I feel like BSA game has to be much stronger during an internship. Uh, some companies, I think, take less rounds of interviews. If you really impress them with a very difficult question, they might even forgive you for a couple rounds, which is great.
Right.
But I think in general, Apple, not Apple, any company internship is like a more competitive area, I think. And CP there really helps, like competitive programming really helps being good at it. Yeah.
Of all the internships and the work that you had done before Apple, which one would you think has been the most valuable or informative for you and shaped your career the
Oh my
best?
God.
You have also been an entrepreneur
Uh,
yourself.
yeah, when I was working in Japan, I tried to start my own company on the side and did a couple of projects. It was all sort of uh, it was not my own ideas. It was helping other people who did not understand what technologies implement their ideas in code. So I did what I knew, like, which is coding. And I feel there's no one experience I can say this was the most important or
Right.
whatever. If I had to repeat my life, I would pick all of them again, like,
Right.
not leave any of them out. But I feel having a couple of years in the same company really helped me
Uh-huh.
uh, understand what being an adult is, because
Right.
it gets really monotonic.
Right.
And as a fresh fresh grad, you don't know that. You think every day is going to be a different challenge, but you have to take up the crappy bugs which come up in code, which are not exciting new features to develop.
Yeah.
And and that is something I learned at Rakuten. And I feel Rakuten also made me more confident. I was exposed to a totally new culture in Japan. I was like one of the only female employees. I was one of the only uh, like non-Japanese speaking person in the office,
Right.
and so my it opened me to a different kind of world where my colleagues did not understand me, or I felt I was not understood at least.
Right.
And um, being able to navigate that situation,
Right.
I think it made me more confident as a person. Now I feel like if I survive that, I can survive this, you know.
Right.
S- And I was young,
That's
I
also
had a lot more energy.
no, when you mentioned that language, had been a tiny bit of a barrier in Japan because a lot of people from India, even in the comment section, I see some people are writing English might be a problem for some of us in India. Uh,
I don't think so. If you do not have good English speaking skills, I repeat, it is okay.
right.
I work with some really smart people at work, and they make the stupidest English grammar mistakes, but that's
Right.
okay because for none of them, English is their first language.
Exactly.
In in my team, I have as many non-Americans as Americans, and some of them are Russian, some of them are Chinese origin, some of them are South Asians like me, and none of us, or some of them are Europeans, and
Right.
for everybody growing up, English was not their first language,
Right.
not
Right.
something that they spoke at home. And people forgive you for that really easily, really, really easily. I feel like the harder part probably is sitting in a meeting and being able to understand what everybody else is saying. And for that, I think Netflix has really prepared us all. Like watching a lot of TV shows help, but I don't think it's a big deal. If English is not your first language, you're having trouble communicating, it
Right.
is okay. But that is not an excuse to not get better.
Yeah.
Good communication skills take you from 99 to 100. So if
Right.
you don't want to be at 99, then work on your English speaking skills. But
Right.
English is not a barrier to get to 99, is my point. And that's a big deal. Like, don't be upset about it.
You have heard it from our guest herself. There is no reason to, feel underconfident because of your language. All that matters is your coding skills and your DSA skills at the end of the day. All right, let's go to the questions sent in by our community for you. This one is by Rohit Nagbhitkar asks, what is the amount of time required for people to, prepare for Apple? And
Uh,
this can be you can just look at it from a fresher's point of view as well as from an experienced professional's point of view. I think the answers would be different in the two cases.
for sure. For example, there are kids in my in Apple in my company who are from a non-computer science background. So maybe they had an English major, they had a history major, or whatever, and they still work in computer science today. And
Right.
for them, the amount of time of preparation is not 6 months. It's more than a year because they have to learn everything about programming. And some of the people who are even watching this right now are not on that stage. They're way ahead in that stage because they have already been exposed to some sort of programming in some way, which is great. So you're already ahead in certain aspects.
Uh-huh.
So obviously it differs for people, but if you're already exposed to programming, I feel like if preparing for interviews is the only thing you're focusing on in your life, 3 to 6 months is plenty because it just involves waking up, looking at new questions, solving them, then eventually getting to a point where you're timing yourself even during practice. Like, can I
Right.
do this in 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Because that's how long an interview is for.
Right.
And nobody's gonna give you an extra time because you want it. Like, they're
Hmm.
just gonna stop it midway.
Right.
And So I think uh, you get there, and that's the best you do.
Mhm. All right. For those who have joined in late, let me reintroduce you to our guest today. We have Ritika Nevatia with us. She is a software developer with software engineer with Apple right now, Apple US, mind you, and she
Mhm.
has also worked with Uber, and she has been all over the globe interning and working with different companies. She has also been an entrepreneur in her journey. Ritika, you have been taking a lot of questions and giving. Advice to a lot of aspirants right now, but I would like to know a little bit about you, Ritika, about what you do every day. What are the kind of
Yes.
technologies that you're working with right now, and what is the nature of project that you're currently working with at Apple?
Yeah, this question is exciting to me because I get to
All right,
talk about what I work on.
please.
Uh, I work on the iCloud team.
Yeah.
Specifically, I work on content delivery. So every
Mhm.
time an iPhone or
Mhm.
a Mac or you go on the web browser and you access photos, videos, or anything on iCloud.com uh, on the Apple ecosystem, you are in some way hitting some part of my code, which is great. Um, what my team works on is delivering that content to you as best we can. So backend, first of all, 100% of my work is backend. I work with distributed systems. Our data is really big, and we have to find something specific and return to the user as fast as possible. So there's a lot of tech involved in that, uh, like in that way. Like there's a lot of components, and I hit some parts of the components which involve uh, routing, decision making, um, uh, logic to access the um, right content and delivering that content as fast as possible. So using the best of our infrastructure to get there. And uh, sometimes it involves touching code about encryption, which cryptography is something I did not pay any attention to in my university life. And I came here and I realized that Apple is really, 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 really strong on privacy. And so encryption is something that touches almost every part in our code. And so I'm learning about cryptography. That's new for me. Uh, I mentioned how bad I was at computer networks before, but I'm getting much better now. Um, my team uses, from a tech point of view, most of our code is in Java, but uh, I do sometimes have to make changes to other people's codes, which may not be in Java. So sometimes I'm writing Swift. I'm touching Python parts,
Yeah.
and some of my other teammates are working on newer tech, which is in other languages like Rust. So there's also that going on around in my team, and the nature of projects can vary. Sometimes my projects are really short, like I get some uh, get some ad hoc requirement on the fly, and
Right.
we wrap that up in a couple of days. Uh, but most of the times the projects are very well defined by me. So the definition part also takes a lot of time.
Right.
Uh, so they are usually 6 months to something that has a vision for the next 5 years. So mm, uh, I think the nature of projects is like there's a lot of planning involved, of course, but what can we get done in the next few weeks, few
Right.
months, and what is the vision that we're running with in the long
Right.
term, long term, and
Right.
I think it's a great way to work. Yeah.
Yeah, you make it sound very easy. But it's not just it's technical, it's administrative, it's a lot of work that you have been a lot of good work that you have been doing. Tell me,
Thank you.
Ritika, what is the work culture like in Apple?
Uh, I'm really happy to be on a team which is celebrating so much diversity.
Right.
Um, my larger team is about um, my larger team is about um, 20 people, and everybody comes from a very different background. Most of us did not speak English as our first language, as I mentioned before. So everybody really definitely brings different perspectives on the table. Um, Many people are very tenured, so like they're very senior. There is so much to learn from them. I'm like when I submit my code for review to them,
Right.
I often get back like a mountain of comments, and I'm working my way through each one of them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to go back and schedule a meeting with them to really clarify what they're asking for, because sometimes they talk about things I don't understand, and I have to be like, can you please tell me what you're saying here? Because I have not done this before. And uh, I feel the culture is very open. I can just right now not walk up to somebody, but just like message somebody um,
Yeah.
and ask a question. And if needed, I'll just talk to them on the phone or something, and they'll help me understand what I'm looking for.
Right.
And I feel at, at Apple, the culture is very uh, like individual contributor driven. So I'm an individual contributor. I'm not a manager. So uh, I I can define projects if I want. If I really want to work at something, I can surface it to the team. Basically, I just write a small write up, a document about it, and I
Right.
present it at a team meeting. And I'll be like, we need this. We need to get this done in some way.
Right.
So here is my idea. What do you guys think?
Right.
And everybody chimes in. In fact, it's
Right.
too many ideas to handle sometimes. So you have to be like, okay, this one's good, or this is something that I can work with.
Right.
So I feel like if you want to drive things, this is a place to be, because you can be owners of things you want to be, and that's just great. And I have a great relationship with my manager and his manager and his manager, and we have like an open line of communication. So
Right.
I feel like that takes away half the barriers.
That sounds like a very wonderful place, very rewarding atmosphere to work at. But at the same time,
Definitely.
I'm sure there is stress. I'm sure there is pressure. Are
Yes.
you overworked? Are you working weekends, Ritika?
No, I have never worked weekends.
Is it
It
Sunday
has,
already where you are?
yeah, it is Sunday morning.
All right.
It's Sunday morning, 7:30 almost.
All right. Okay, we have a very interesting question from this guy called Tushar. Tushar
Okay.
Buria. He wants to know if you have made any mistakes during your journey till Apple, and if so, uh, what did you learn from them, from your mistakes?
Uh, I have definitely not been perfect. Uh, I I feel like I used to stress too much, and uh, I used to think that I have probably something to prove, or I don't know what. But I used to be very serious about my job, and like um, and now with experience, I feel like I understand that work is always going to be there, and there
Right.
is nothing you can achieve by stressing about it.
Right.
So instead, get as much as you can done, and just communicate where you are not able to get things done. So again, I feel like being able to say no, or being able to say I don't know, is important,
Right.
and not feel embarrassed about it.
Right.
So I I think I used to stress a lot before, and that has definitely changed with time.
Right. A lot of youngsters, we learn to handle stress as we mature with experience. But a lot of youngsters, they do not see any other option. The stress with the exams, the stress with interview preparations. Uh, how do you think they can cope with this situation?
Oh, with what situation again? I'm sorry.
With the stress that they often go through, the youngsters, with the stress of examinations, competitive competitions, and interviews. Um,
So I have a brother who is also in his university right now in Mumbai,
right.
and he's often asking me for advice too. And he also says the same thing to me. He's like, I have so much to get done. And he's like, I also want to write a research paper. I also want to write this app. I also want to write this. I also have
Right.
exams to work on. I also want to do this. So
Right.
he's always confused. I feel, I feel just pick one thing, and get at it. And when that finishes, automatically some part of the stress lifts off, because until that work is done, that stress is not going to go away. But I feel one easy way to manage stress is to be realistic.
Right.
Oftentimes, I feel ambitious people, which we all are, I'm sure, are very hard on ourselves. That, we will say we want to be the best, and so we'll push ourselves like to the extreme, and that's not healthy. Like, it's
Right.
not sustainable. You can do it for 10 days, you can do it for 6 months, you cannot do it for 60 years.
Yes.
So it has to be something sustainable. And so set
Right.
realistic expectations to yourself.
Right.
And automatically, I think stress goes down when you think you understand yourself. Like, if you know you're not going to wake up at 7 a.m. and exercise, then don't
Right.
put that on your schedule. Simple.
Right.
like don't be over ambitious is what I'm trying to
Right.
say. So I feel like that is one common source of stress, expectations from our own self.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I feel like sometimes we feel other people give us stress, like, oh, they're asking me to do this, and how do I say no to them? Or like, I feel like everybody, like, first, one of the most important things I think I've learned is there is no malice. So never think that someone is asking you for something because they have a bad intention in their head. Um, it is probably because they themselves are stressed about something.
Right.
So just talk to them about it. So I feel like that is one major thing, that we misunderstand people really easily. So don't be super um, like don't be aggressive about the misconceptions you have about someone. Just give them that space, and then automatically you'll take less stress from them, because you'll understand they are also a human. You'll understand they also have a life outside of work.
Right.
And yeah, I feel like that makes your own life easy. Like, the stress goes away.
Right. That's some very reasonable and practical advice from Ritika here. Guys, if you have any questions for Ritika, please flood the comment section. Ritika is here. She's woken up at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday and she's entertaining us. So you better make the best use of the time. I'm gonna go back to the questions that I have for her already. This
Sure.
is from Navjeet Kaur, and he wants to know if there is in a certain pattern or a sequence of topics in which most of the companies take interviews.
Yes, there is a pattern to interviewing. And as you interview more, you understand that this pattern is perfect.
Right.
You walk in, you have 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes, depending on a company. Apple, I felt, usually was 30 minutes. People are really busy, so they like to get it done really fast. Um, you walk in, make the introductions as short as possible, because
Right.
that person already has a resume in front of them, so they know
Right.
everything that they know about you already. So whatever you've written on your resume, they already know. Assume that and move on, and make your two-line introduction really quick, and just get down to business as fast as possible, because the more time you leave for your tech interview, the the better it is for you, because you don't want to do it in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but you actually have 30 minutes or 45 minutes, like all of the interviews just for your coding abilities.
Right.
So get down to business really fast, and
Right.
that's in your hand. Maybe um, leave your questions. One important thing that I think I should mention is, people think that during an interview, you are being interviewed. That's not true, at least
Right.
not for me. I think I am also interviewing the company.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many options to work at. Like, when I was interviewing at Apple, I had other opportunities also. And how do you decide if not during the interview? Like, the interview is the only place where you have a chance to actually ask your questions to the interviewer
Right.
about their life, about their everyday work. Like, just like the questions you have been asking me, is the questions I usually want to know from a person
Right.
I'm going to work with for the next X years of my life with.
Right. Right.
So uh, leave space for that in the end, which means squeeze your interview in the middle as fast as you can. So get down to business, usually the standard is they'll ask you a simple problem, which will
Right.
which you can answer really fast or write code for really fast, and then they'll build on that problem. So they'll be like, what if I introduce this level of complexity? What would you do? And then you edit your code a little bit here and there, or you write a new function and you call that new function instead of your old one,
Mm-hmm.
and then they add another layer of complexity. Usually, even the interviewers leave space in the end. Come prepared for that space.
Right.
Don't remember that this is also you interviewing them. So you should have a lot of questions at the end. Ask them about their job. Ask them about if they like the culture. The same questions that you're asking me. If they like the culture, what do they hate about the culture? So that is how you learn what's the worst thing that can happen to you if you work there,
Right.
and what's the stress level. Do you work on weekends? Like, these are good questions to ask of an
Right.
interviewer, and
Yeah.
it sets yourself decent expectations. Like, are you happy with the money? Do you talk to your manager freely? um, like, what would happen if this happens? Or like, um, interview them too. Just don't be let it be your interview.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the quote of the day by Ritika. If you're worried about if you're worried about interviews, just remember that it's not just the company that is interviewing you. You are also interviewing the company. That puts you in a position of confidence.
Yes, I think so.
Right. All right. Let's take the next question. This is from Karandeep. What programming projects should I have in my resume?
Okay. So for freshers, I feel like we have a really short resume as freshers, because what do we have to show? We have only a degree and um, no experience. So I feel like programming projects are really important. If I, for example, was very confused, I didn't even know the types of fields inside computer science that existed.
Right.
So for me, CS was this one thing, but now I know it's not just this one thing. You can be operating system specific, you can be networking specific, you can be distributed systems, you can be
Right.
front end. Even in front end, there is like tens of different things you can do that I don't know
Right.
about. You can be machine learning. In machine learning, you can be someone who likes to do research, who likes to do implementation, who likes to
Right.
build infrastructure. So if you already know what you want to do, oh my God, you're the winner already. But for me, I did not know what I wanted to do.
Right.
So I feel this is advice I give to my brother also. Uh, Time in college is best spent doing a variety of projects.
Right.
So try writing an app, try writing some UI code, try
Uh-huh.
writing backend code, try implementing some distributed systems algorithm, try writing your own file system if you have the time and the energy. Um, Try contributing to a open source project, see how it works out for you,
Right.
uh, and put these projects on the resume. I feel like no project on a resume should be without a link.
Right.
If there is no hyperlink to the code of the project, don't put the project on the resume for me,
Right.
because I don't want to know words about your project. I want to see code. Like, that's our day job. I want to see
Yeah.
um, what kind of what kind of constructs did you use, what kind of libraries did you import, or what language did you write that in. If you can, if you don't care about like it being public or whatever, share a link to your project or share a demo. If you can share a demo, I feel like the person will never see your code. So you can hide your flaws by linking to the demo of your project, because you're just impressing them by the final
Right.
product.
Right.
And that is the by far most impressive thing you can do to a resume. Have links to the demos. So have as many links as you can. Give people
That's
things to be impressed
right.
with. Yeah.
Extremely smart and extremely effective.
Yeah.
Um, We are almost, we have run out of time already. We have, 5 minutes past an hour. But let's just quickly take some questions from the comment section.
Okay.
Uh, this is sent by Akshit Mangotra. He asks if any fresher doesn't have any skills in Apple, like no iOS development experience, can he still apply as a fresher? Or should we, have at least one technology experience with one technology of Apple?
I don't think that's true. Uh, you will be surprised how big a company Apple is,
Right.
and you cannot say that you do not have any skill that is being used at Apple right now. I think
Right.
that statement is a wrong assumption.
Uh-huh.
So I think you already have some skills that Apple uses, and you just do not know about it. So probably understand that Apple does not just do iOS development. Like, I know we have a iPhone and we have a platform for iOS, but there are so many more things that we as a company do. Like we have services uh, which do not like there's not just front end work. Like iOS development is just the app part of it. There's so
Right.
much that goes on the back end.
Right.
We have our websites. We have services that we give to other developers,
Hmm.
so those things do not require iOS development. So if your view of Apple is that it's just iOS dev, then it's wrong because that's a very, very tiny part of what Apple does. And it's
Right.
actually a huge company with huge opportunities of work. And you probably have some of the skills at least that Apple is using right now.
By the way, have you had the chance to meet Tim Cook? Someone has asked.
No, I have not. I went to, so I started in January of 2020, last day of January.
Right.
So 1 week I was in Cupertino in the big Apple ring, the very
Right.
popular building, but I did not run into someone famous. Uh, but and then the pandemic started, so I never went back to work again. And then I also do not work from Cupertino. I work from Seattle, which is another
Right.
city in the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I never went back to work. So I never have had a chance to run into some of the famous people.
All right. Jasleen Kaur has asked, which language should you know to get an app?
Again, my answer is going to be the same. Teams
Right.
use Swift, teams use Java. My org is so Java heavy. We use teams use C, C++, Rust. Um, there's Scala. There's name a language. Someone in Apple works on it. So you can't you can't have just one language. Like
Right.
if you want to
Right.
get into a specific team, then yes, there is a specific language. But as a
Right.
company, I think any language should work.
Right. Well, Ritika has joined us on a Sunday morning, giving us a lot of important, really insightful information about her, experience with Apple. Ritika, I'm going to ask you a final couple of questions, and I'm going to let you, get
Sure.
on with your day. Uh, we would like to know if you have any list or resources of books, courses or any platforms that you have used or you want to advise someone to use to crack a company like Apple.
Okay. I think one of the easiest books to refer is Cracking the Coding Interview. I feel it's a very short summary about how interviews are done in tech. So it layers you from easier data structures and makes it more complex, ending with
Right.
trees and graphs and special types of trees and graphs. So that is one book, and um, courses. I would say knowing the basics of everything helps, because then if your interview is not just DSA and they happen to ask you something from a different, like a specific field, then you can at least know what they're talking about.
Right.
Platforms wise, personally, the last 3 years I used LeetCode, uh, but it was because that. on that platform, they have like company specific questions that you can target. And so I like to refer to that list and keep myself up to date with what's going on in tech interviews these days. And but any platform really works. Um,
Right.
as long as you're just writing some competitive programming kind of code, it doesn't matter. And courses, yeah, I mentioned a little bit of everything
Right.
helps.
Right. And I hope you guys are taking note. We have come to the end of our session. Last question for you, Ritika. Is
Hmm.
the interview with Apple any different from the rest of the companies? Because I'm getting this question a lot on the comment section as well as in
Um,
the chat questions.
I think it's a good question to ask. In general, I can say that my experience interviewing with all the tech companies was the same. Everybody started with the same introduction. They asked me a computer science, data structure type of a problem. They added some complexity to it. They made me change my code. Sometimes I made mistakes, so they made me debug it. Um, uh, Probably companies like Apple made me write my code on a whiteboard because that time we were still doing interviews in person. Like, the pandemic
Right.
did not happen yet.
Mhm.
Maybe it's different now. Like, everything's sort of more virtual.
Right.
So you're probably writing code on a platform. So your mistakes are even easier to be highlighted,
Mhm.
like on an editor or something. But I think it was different in a sense that Apple was more wholesome. They just did not care about data structures and algorithm. But I was asked databases. I was asked big data, how big data works. I was asked about how the internet works. I
Right.
was asked about computer networks. I was asked to design a lot of applications. So I had a lot of system design rounds. Right off the bat, I had questions about distributed systems and a very specific problem in distributed systems and how I would go about solving it. So I felt my interview at Apple was different in the sense that it was very, very wholesome, that all of computer science. And
Right.
now that I work in the same team as interviewed me, I realize all the questions that they asked me
Right.
is something that we are working on today in my team. So I felt that was really special that they did not interview me as a general candidate, but they interviewed me as a specific candidate to my team, which
Right.
was
Right.
which gave me a taste of what life is going to be once I join.
Right. Well, Ritika, we couldn't have asked for a better session from you. But before
Thank you.
we let you go, if there is any piece of advice, not that you haven't given already a lot, but if there is anything else that you would want to give all these people who are looking up to you, uh, all the
Uh,
aspiring youngsters.
I feel like keep your resume short. Nobody reads a long resume. I get bored. Pretty sure the person who is going to be interviewing you does not have the time to read long sentences. Keep demo links. Everything's a PDF, so someone will open it. And a lot of you probably already visited my website, so you can even go to your analytics on your website and see that people are actually hitting it. So you already know people are looking at code demos that you've put out,
Mhm.
and so that might be a sign of encouragement.
Right.
But put up demo links in your resume. Add code if you can. A link to a GitHub profile would be great. Um, this is for the resume part. Interview, I feel like don't stress about it.
Mhm.
There is nothing you can do at the last minute. So just take a deep breath, walk in confidently, tell yourself that you're the best version of who you can be right now.
Mhm.
So be in that body and
Right.
interview with that mindset. And don't forget that uh, you are also judging the person or the company as much as the company is judging you. So don't let them have all the cards in your head. Be like, I'm also judging them, so there may be a chance that I reject their offer because I do not like the company that this is.
Right.
And and don't be like, um, I have to get this no matter what. That's never a good idea or a good state of mind to be in.
All right. So, people who are asking what skills should they possess after graduation, Ritika has already mentioned. Most of them covered most of it. You can just get back to the video once it's uploaded on YouTube. That was Ritika Nevatia, who SDE with Apple. She has come a long way, and there is a long way that she will be going. I hope she comes back on CodeChef and talks to us and gives more insight. Thank you, Ritika, so much for joining
No,
us.
thank
This
you.
has been one of our
Of
best
course.
sessions. You have a great Sunday today. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody, back home in India. I hope I can see you guys soon sometime when the
Yes,
travel
please.
ban
That will be
opens.
great. Thank you so much. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.